Is it me to speak, or are we going to do an intro?
Oh, you're going to speak, all right.
No, Anara's
Okay.
gonna do the intro, and then
Yes.
Victor's gonna introduce you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Anara,
You can
please.
start, Anara. Start us out.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anara Tabashaliva, along with co-host Dr. Victor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Sherray. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, and literary figures. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you are joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any questions for our guest. A quick greetings to our viewers in Ukraine from Dr. Katerina Shrey.
Вітаємо наших слухачів в Україні з глибоким поклоном. Ми далі свідки вашого страшного терпіння і також вашої великої сили. Дякую вам за вашу участь в нашій тижневій програмі.
Thank you, Katerina. Today's guest will be introduced by Dr. Victor Fett.
Thank you, Anara, and it's my pleasure to welcome back a special guest. Mr. Bear Kirk is Director of Operation in Ursa Major International. He is working with Ukrainian authorities to secure safe passage for displaced persons and for the safe return of children forcefully displaced from Ukraine. Bear is a British ex-army major who formed his organization in 2006, vowing to become modern-day Good Samaritans under the Templar oaths of Knights Templars of Albion. He has worked across the globe facilitating humanitarian and refugee displaced persons protection programs. He has been on our program before, and we are eager to hear his current report. Please, Bear, microphone is yours right now.
Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure to be able to come back and speak freely in times where speaking freely isn't a privilege anymore. It's not even a right in some places. I think to start with, what's really important to note is that when we were introduced as academics, as engineers, as professors of learning, and humanitarian and military. And if you look at that entire list, that is all of the people that Putin fears, and any dictator fears, even Mr. Trump, should it be said. They fear learning, they fear knowledge, they fear people who are smart. And it's our job in the 21st century, less than 80 years since a war that was never to be repeated, and 110 years since the original model for we can never do this again as humanity. It's interesting to see that it is going on right under our noses, and we have the power to stop that in any way, shape, or form. Now, I've been on a couple of meetings today where, under caution and in some cases under an NDA, I was able to talk about an event, but not into so much detail that I was at risk from criminal courts, whoever may control them. And we talked about two events where I was instrumental of influencing an outcome, not because I was left, not because I was right, not because I was somewhere on the spectrum dependent on where the pendulum was in that time of history, but because it was a right and wrong issue. And in both times, one I can tell you was civil disobedience during the miners' strike in the UK in 1984-85, where there was leftist propaganda, there was rightist political rhetoric, and common people were pushed into a place where they were fighting each other, village against village, fathers against sons, cousins against cousins and uncles. And in my brain, it said, this is wrong. So we need to level the playing field. We need to fix that. And indeed, by giving information from one group that I was privy to another, in order to level the playing field of what was right and wrong, was instrumental to the outcome. And then again, if we took that same Good Samaritan ethos to a place in Yemen in 2015, so now we're 50 years further down the track, and that 30 years down the track, we have exactly the same thing, where the disadvantaged were at risk of a marauding bunch of people who had decided to expand geographically through coercion and through atrocities and through ideology that wasn't right in the human world. So again, I was able to galvanize 8 villages and to teach men and women how to work tactically to protect themselves. And that effectively stopped the Houthi rebels who had come all the way through Central Africa from advancing further into regions where the 21st century would have been unacceptable because of media exposure, would have been unacceptable to be seen even. And we're talking at a time when the Houthis were stopped in their tracks because of the efforts of just 8 small villages. They were unable to get to the eastern borders of Saudi Arabia, where they could have created absolute havoc and done what their dictator leadership wanted, put them on the central stage. It's only a few years later when they actually managed to do that through sponsorship and supply of weapons from other undesirable people, which is exactly where we are now. If we take the eastern land borders of Saudi Arabia and put that that map over the eastern land border of Ukraine, we're in exactly the same position. And this is a repeat and a repeat and a repeat of history. This is why we have to take a stand. And on my last visit with you all, I talked about my efforts in bringing children back to Ukraine. I did promise, and I know I failed somewhat in providing some more detailed information, but I was asked about how many children. I said about 20,000. We now know that I wasn't far off the mark. It was 19,546 documented cases of individual children. And that came from the figures in March 2023. The US government estimated it could be up to 260,000. It's a big difference in numbers. So therefore, you've got to wonder, what was the nature of the transfer? Where did they go? Well, it was orphanages, it was hospitals, it was from occupied territories. And a lot of these children were sent to summer camps, in inverted commas, in Russia and Belarus. We know that. We've actually identified every single facility where the children have gone to. And I think the number is quite appalling. There are several maps around. You can get the Institute for the Study of War. There is the maps that have been put together through intelligence gathering by the people now who I have turned all of my efforts over to, Save Ukraine, and War Child UK. So what is Ursa Major's role in bringing the children back? the first thing I did after our last meeting, because of personal issues, we were deported from America as I alluded to last time. We did leave. Oksana is in Ukraine right now, organising paperwork for a visa for the UK. She can't return home. 3 weeks ago, the Russians put a drone through the upstairs window of our dacha where we were living. Oksana's apartment, forget it, that's not habitable. So we'd moved to the dacha, but then the collaborators from within found us, followed us, documented it, sent pictures off. We intercepted all of their signals. They were arrested just last week, and they didn't arrest the perpetrator. They waited and did a background check on all of the people he was associated with, and it was a couple, a man and woman, who didn't really have a leaning to left or right, or free Ukraine or pro-Russia. They had a leaning to who's going to win and which side do we need to be on. They thought Russia was going to win, and they wanted to be on that side. Unfortunately, the intelligence services cracked the code. They listened to signals, and I came out unscathed. Oksana came out unscathed, and it was purely by chance. We were due to return to the dacha on a particular day, but we were held up by one day in Poland, one day in Lviv, didn't get out of Odessa on time when we needed to, and we were therefore a day and a half late. But I'd programmed the lights and the heating to come on. It was electric, not the heating, the electric storage heater that I'd bought and took across with me. And I programmed them to come on a few hours before we were due to get back. We didn't get back, but the Russians saw the lights on, all the collaborators did, and they thought it was time to strike. And we weren't actually there. So good fortune, God was shining on us that day. We had an angel on each shoulder, whatever you might want to call it. So Ursa Major International now has managed to mop up in the last, since April, I think, when I spoke to you last, we've mopped up all of the smaller organizations, and we've now given them all intelligence, data and logistics and reports, operational, medical, psychologist, anybody that we were working with. We've managed in 6 months to get them all tied up into one nice bundle, and they are now all working for Save Ukraine or War Child UK. Where does that leave me? I've learned a lot about the power of media. I don't call it social media because I think in a lot of cases, I think 95% of the time, as portrayed by Mr. Trump, it's unsocial media. It's not friendly at all. It's not designed to be. While ever people are allowed to do what they do and bully and coerce and insult and, make uninformed opinions other people's informed opinions. It's not right. So I decided at that point, we're moving out of the US. I've got to go back to Ukraine and continue of the program of getting everybody under one umbrella organization where they're more efficient, they're more effective, they have really good morally grounded and foundational methods of operating. The professionalism is out of the roof, and in enhancing that, I think we've done the right thing. So I've taken a step back, and I think you might remember me talking about the 6-year-old boy, Yuri, whose hair was turned white overnight, and he'd lost the human reflex to blink. I did report that he blinked once on Valentine's Day this year. He has blinked many times since, and at the moment, his reason for blinking is to communicate. when he still can't show signs of comprehending or absorbing verbal communication. He can hear. They know he can. His hearing is good. But at the moment, his brain still says, nah, I'm not ready. But he blinks. And he'll blink. I don't know if it's blink once for yes and twice for no. But when I go to Berlin I speak to people who have been to Berlin on my behalf a few months ago, we came up with the idea that it's not good enough for me to talk to 11 people or 12 people on a platform like this through the Marshall Institute. And then hopefully the disciples will take that message away. My job now is to bring this to the masses. So I'm working with a Canadian, or he's an American film producer who can no longer go back to America because he's a person of interest. He has a lot of anti-Trump rhetoric behind him, which has made him a person of interest. So, but he's in Canada, he's safe, and he's got very much the same thought processes as I. So we decided the best thing to do was take it, Yuri's story, to the millions out there who have already shown that they can be influenced by what they see and hear. Now, I don't know if anyone remembers, there was a movie director who made a movie about the trafficking industry, and I hate to call it an industry. I'm not allowed to hate, but this is one thing that I abhor. A $6.2 billion a year machine that traffics people. And this guy made this movie, and it was crowdfunded. So when people bought tickets, that was what bought the movie success. That is what funded. It was post-funded, if you like. So that's our aim, is to do something on the same scale, but hopefully attract major sponsorship beforehand. But there are a couple of downsides. I have to go back to places where I oughtn't to go. And I'm going to take a small crew with me, a cameraman or woman and a sound recordist, and then we'll have our own very, very small protection team. They're undergoing training right now because they're good at what they do, but they're not combat veterans. They don't know how to survive in a woodland setting or otherwise. So that's the plan. That's where Ursa Major International is going. And we want, however many billions of people on the planet there are, to see really what's going on and to put themselves in the shoes of unfortunate Ukrainian families whose children have been stolen. I mean, when I say it, I still get goosebumps because I have to come to terms with it myself, even though I've seen it firsthand. And I said I wouldn't say so much after seeing the recording last night from the other one. So Yuri's story will definitely be out there soon, and every single penny or dollar or whatever it is that they make from that movie will be ploughed back into Save Ukraine and War Child UK. We don't see the need to spread that financial gain elsewhere, because these are the two organizations really that have set precedents and proven through results of returning. I mean, I think overall more than 2,000 children have been returned so far. But knowing where the rest of them are now is incredible. I saw a letter that I contributed to, but that went out to Russian families who have they've ordered children off a website. Now, the website, there is a website where Ukrainian children can be bought or taken. But we copied the website, and we used artificial intelligence to build everything that mirror imaged the original website. So people were coming to us, and it's an organization that is far smarter than I can begin to believe I'm part of. But they came to us and tried to buy children who didn't exist. But in doing that, we were able to break into a network of people in Russia and Belarus who have openly taken children. And some children, unfortunately, are no longer with us through that process because of the social environment that they were taken into. We wonder if there's some level of modern day slavery going on. They've now called it the Cinderella philosophy, where Russian children have got a younger Ukrainian sibling who is just there at their will. It's just bizarre. So, Ursa Major now, will I be put at risk in the future? Yeah, of course I will. But the point I'm trying to make is it's that little event from 1984, 85 in the miners' strike. It's that little event in Yemen where we were able to get people to decide what was good, what was bad, what was right, what was wrong. Forget politics and forget which side of the fence you are, left or right, or wherever the pendulum decides that left or right sits. They were able to make a human judgment that said, we're going to do the right thing. And they adopted everything that's on this Templar cross. And I just think it's a turning point. We're at a time where we can put a bigger spotlight on people, not just a small laser beam. And I talked about the letter that went out to various Russian families that said in doing what they're doing, they are now implicit in what is the biggest displacement of young people in recorded history, and that they themselves, not just the Russian regime, but they themselves can be found guilty in the International Criminal Court. There was a think tank that tested a lot of these people. They're all blue collar. They all travel. Unfortunately, they get on the same planes as us, free to travel, knowing what they've done is wrong. And we've got to stop that. We've got to take away those privileges and leave those privileges for the remaining humans in humanity. And anybody who wants to operate outside of those premises and become inhuman, then you know what? It's a level of God meets Darwin and they fix it, whichever you believe. It's a hugely powerful time in history. Should I talk about the military side? I can tell you we're winning. Do we need Tomahawk missiles? Yeah, we'd like them, but Storm Shadow does just as good a job. So do I want to support the use of long-range missiles into Russia? Not really, when I look at the end result of that particular missile. But when I look at the end result of all of those missiles in the bigger picture, getting people to the table to say, okay, we've had enough, we're going home now, fantastic, absolutely love it. With real estate, our soldiers are by far the best on the planet. And I don't mean war fighters, I mean soldiers who come with an empathetic edge, who get it, who understand it. And I don't know if anybody's seen footage from last week of Azov brigades who were absolutely feared across all of Europe as far as a fighting force goes. There was footage out. I know one of the English guys who was on the patrol. They took Russian prisoners in a village near Pokrovsk, and a Russian was clearly seen and heard saying to the Azov brigades, are we being taken prisoner, or are we done? Are we going to be executed? And the response was very clear. We're not like you. We're not you. You will be taken prisoner into captivity. You will be fed. You'll be treated for your wounds. And then process will take place. And that, for me, that should go viral. Everybody on the planet should see that the race, the culture, the history, the clothing, the ideology, the deep-rooted family morals and values that the Russians are trying to take off the planet and leave no trace is Ukraine. It's everything about Ukraine. It's not a shiny veneer on the surface. It's not a shiny edges to a box. This is like a Victoria sandwich cake. It's multi-layered, multifaceted, and it is so deep that when I talk about it and the Ukrainian culture and the togetherness and the resilience, it gives me goosebumps. And and sometimes I have to pinch myself to stop me tearing up in public forums like this, because I'm immensely proud of meeting this race, this nationality, this culture at my time of life, and be able to bring all my experiences to bear to help them, because they deserve it. And in some cases, when I see Russian soldiers from ethnic minorities, which the most of them are, who are living in squalor back home and are amazed at what they're sent to destroy because they want it. It's a massive learning curve for us, and I think this has the opportunity. This whole sorry mess has the opportunity to be the thing that brought humanity back to our species. I think there's a lot more detail I could go into. Militarily, we control the skies now. It's hard to put a 55-pound shell into someone's back garden when you're out of range, because we control the skies. And it's tough to keep coming forward in droves with massive millions and millions of dollars worth of armament just to see it destroyed by drones that are only a couple of $100 worth. To see that happen. Sanctions on oil and gas. Why are we in our 19th round of sanctions as Europeans and with our American support and others from the Commonwealth? Why? 19 rounds of sanctions. Should be in one round that finished this thing immediately and put it to bed. It should have been the thing that stopped this thing dead in its tracks and never to be repeated. Yet we're talking about waving flags for the 19th round of sanctions. We're still sitting on $140 billion, which could be allocated to Ukraine, not given as a loan. But that is Russian money that they can't have, that we should, to put the wrongs right. And don't understand that. Obviously, there are smarter people than me. Maybe I tell it too simple, but I don't understand why we're in the 19th round of sanctions. It's just bizarre. We need to stop this thing today, tomorrow, by tea time, Sunday night. We have to stop it. And I think when we take Yuri's story to the masses, it will definitely have an impact. And we're not just going to show a movie that throws some credits up at the end. We're going to give people an opportunity to give comments and feedback and to come on board. Because like 7 million people congregated in 2,700 American cities and towns last weekend and showed what peaceful process can really be. Imagine giving 1 billion people the same message at the same time, and then getting a follow-on event. It could make some of the pro-Ukraine demonstrations across Europe and around the world on certain special days look amateur. And I think if we can pull that off and we can get Yuri's story out there, I can find parents in Riga and take them home. I can get Oksana and help her to pack her suitcase in the most meticulous manner that you've ever seen anybody ever pack. She could get a 3-bedroom bungalow into a 26 kilogram suitcase. It's just amazing. And if I can do that and take her home, that's fantastic. And if I can give the opportunity to all of the people displaced around Europe and the world when they should be home, then that's mission accomplished for me. And then I can go and get Yuri. And I can sit and talk to him forever. Or if that's all I have to do is sit on a canvas deck chair overlooking a lake, throwing food to the swans, talking to Yuri until the point where his head says, the shop's open, come on in, then that's mission accomplished for me. I don't know what the time is. I haven't said as much this time because we're in a state of turning things over. So when I'm 35 minutes in, I'm quite happy to take questions and see what everybody else can help me with to then help the panel.
Thank you so much, Bear. It is heart-wrenching, and I already see questions, and I think Dr. Deutsch was first. Please, Leonard.
Hi. Regarding the documentary, do you have enough sponsors? How close are you to finishing this film? And what is the distribution plan? How do you plan to make it available to everybody?
Okay, no, we do not have enough sponsors yet. We're meeting with a Ukrainian journalist on Monday who is going to add an awful lot of expertise to the process. With regards to the calendar, I overpromised when we first set this thing up, knowing that I would underdeliver. We were looking at December for the release, and I accepted that we probably can't do that. But then after a meeting this week, I'm told that yes, we can, and yes, we must, and that the time is right. If we put this on the strategic plan of recovery and the counteroffensive and the inroads into intelligence gathering by superb organizations like Save Ukraine and War Child and others, then I think we can pull it off. So we're aiming for December. I've had to kind of reinvent myself here in the UK as well. I don't know if you remember, I don't know if I told, but I spent my pension on one of the big rescue efforts in Mariupol. And that was because I looked at the rule of law and the potential and rolled the dice and said, what are the chances of me ever coming out of this alive? And I decided that it was pretty much zero. So therefore, it didn't matter if I spent my pension. So I'm actually pushing hard on two fronts. But now, after a flurry of activity over the last few days, I actually believe that we can get back on track. Because we don't have a movie set, it's already built for us. We don't have actors because they're already out there. And but what we do have is technology. We have smart thinking. We have future-ready thinking. And I honestly believe that now, against all odds, we probably can get it at least draft form by the end of December. And it means I'm not going to get much sleep over the next coming months. But you know what? I can sleep next year. So that's the sponsorship and the schedule. Leonard, you asked another question on the end of that. Could you remind me?
The distribution, how do you plan to make it available to as many people as possible?
This young Ukrainian lady who's coming on as an associate producer is supremely smart in that she said, if you tell people they cannot show this in any form or medium, they will, for sure. And we were looking at box office. We were looking at the big cinemas, a big red carpet thing, doing everything that a major Hollywood blockbuster would do. And she said, why limit yourself to that? Good movies have failed just by having all their eggs in one basket. Why limit yourself? So she is talking about putting a think tank together whereby we have people who are experts in what I call on social media. But in this case, I'm prepared to say it's social media because it's got a positive outcome. So the distribution is on every single medium that we can think of on the planet. I don't know what the schedule looks like for that, Leonard, but if anybody has any ideas, we're ready and open.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anara, please.
Thank you very much for your valuable and rarely discussed issues. We usually don't talk about this, but I think it's a very interesting approach. How to use soft power to prevent war crimes in Ukraine and beyond? And another question, how to deal with Russians' soft power that is quite actually visible? And the last question, what soft power lessons we can learn from this war in Ukraine and other conflicts across the world? Thank you.
I think the first thing, we shouldn't get soft power mixed up with soft diplomacy. It's well recognized the Chinese are the experts at soft diplomacy through commerce and industry and supporting small projects around the world, Africa, etc. I think what we need to do, and again, I'm looking for guidance from the ICC, International Criminal Court here. I don't think we can have any reason for negotiation. If there have been war crimes, then there has to be rule of law, and we need to make examples of every single one. And let's face it, if we have a catalogue of 365 pages of 20 cases on each page, we will still spend less time on bringing those people, time and money on bringing those people to justice than we would spending it on arms and munitions, for sure. So I think we put a line in the sand and say, we will negotiate with regards to information, but if you have been found guilty of war crimes, then you must serve the sentence. I don't think we can consider, I think in this case, soft is hard, because we're going to be in the same place again in a few years' time when the Russians decide to have a walk over into Estonia and Latvia and Denmark and Norway. We need to stop this once and for all, for sure. Does that answer the question, Nara? You're muted. Sorry.
You're muted.
Yeah.
Anna.
So sorry. Thank you very much. You answered this question. It's extremely valuable. And I just wanted to clarify what soft power lessons in Ukraine we can actually use in the future conflicts, because we're learning from Ukrainian war that how we can help other conflicts across the world.
When we look back at this thing in history, if we miss the opportunity for events to have set new precedent, we will have missed the boat, and we will be guilty of neglect. And when we look back and we see that there's been a level of negotiation that lets people off scot-free, we'll have missed the boat. We'll be guilty of neglect yet again. I think this war needs to be fully documented. Is anybody aware of the Truth and Reconciliation process that was orchestrated by Archbishop Desmond Tutu in South Africa to bring the end of apartheid?
Mhm.
I think maybe we could emulate some of that, where people are given the opportunity to come forward and tell the real story. I think we have to do that. Reconciliation through non-violent methods has been proven to be a winner. Archbishop Tutu was patron of my charity, my sports charity in South Africa, for just over 20 years. And I used to call him father. He used to call me son. And we had that relationship. We'd become almost, we'd become family. A lot of people don't know that he was also instrumental in the Northern Ireland Peace Accord. He was also instrumental in bringing the original 1987 Palestinian Intifada to an end through peaceful means. He was also instrumental in the Bosnia and Kosovo conflict. So if we can embrace reconciliation through truth, and that's the key point, and give people their chance to sit not in the confessions box in their local church, but in the confessions box in the International Criminal Court on the bigger stage, then we need to embrace that, because I for one will be more than happy as an individual to go and sit in front of that panel and tell it like it is. Tell the people what really happened. And it's far worse than what we've seen, for sure. I think that people are allowed to repent, but I think also that doesn't absolve them from justice. But we can fly, we can play, we can fly that flag of repentance. We can fly the flag around mutual collaboration and having a chance to be seen to be doing the right thing, irrespective of the circumstances that made us do the wrong thing in the first place. Do you remember when I talked about my book and the inscription at the beginning said, "I may not have been seen to have lived my life with honor, but I have definitely earned the right to die with it." And I think that spells it out for me. we can be, we mustn't get soft mixed up with weak either. We have to be as strong as we're able, or otherwise, yeah, we've not really done everything that we could. And history will judge us, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bear. John Yeager is waiting here. John Yeager, president of our local tri-state sunflower seeds aid for Ukraine. Remarkable organizations. John, please open your camera. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Bear. Good to see you again. I have to say I'm both angry and proud to hear about your being personally attacked. It makes me very angry, but proud to know that what you're doing is the cause. And we will pray for you. Also, on a more personal note, in another life, 35 some years ago, I worked for Booker Consulting, which was purchased by Parsons Brinkerhoff, and you work with. So we have. What did you do with Parsons?
I was head of strategic risk.
Okay.
And so when I was in Africa with them, I was also on the panel for critical points of national infrastructure. So it was quite an exciting time. That also was pre the end of apartheid. So we saw the changes. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah. It was just post-apartheid. I was in Africa prior to that for 2 years before apartheid finished. So again, I was able to, Parsons Brinkerhoff were a fantastic organization. And I wish that Henry Parsons was still around to guide and mentor us. I've seen his desk in the office with WSP in New York in One Penn Plaza. His old engineering desk is still there, like an old-fashioned bureau. Fantastic.
Okay, I got a few follow-ups. Okay, this is not comic relief, but it may come out that way. Melania Trump talking to Putin about getting children. I mean, we see that was made, headlines that Melania was rescuing children, and I think it was a more bluster. But your perspective?
We have approached the presidential office and asked for Melania Trump to come on as a figurehead and put the money where the mouth is. We were given short shrift to start with, but then I followed up with a letter that said, hey, just imagine becoming the new Princess Diana. They took the bait like you wouldn't believe. I don't know what the response is yet, but the fact that they confirmed and acknowledged that the king is now going to be married to a princess. I mean, what are the chances?
Well played, sir. Well played. Okay, a couple more. So last time you said you were going into Russia with a film crew to do a documentary on your getting kids out of there. Is that going forward? No.
It's going forward. It didn't at the time that we envisaged because of security reasons. Indeed, one of the camera crew, a lady, she was targeted in Poland. And the people were arrested. They were deported. But that told us that there were some leaks with regards to the good old-fashioned on social media that puts us all front and center. But yeah, that will be the nucleus of how we get some of this footage. And I'm fairly confident that we're going to get into one of the camps the summer camps, where we're getting good intelligence from within. Maybe that the star of the show is the 17-year-old girl that is giving us information on a daily basis. Bravery and courage and fortitude and So the pride in having met this individual, albeit online or over the airwaves, and knowing that she is willing to give all. You know, she disguised herself as a boy for the first 5 months of her captivity, and she swore the rest of the boys in that dorm to secrecy. But unfortunately, obviously, she was 15 and a half at the time, and her body was going through changes, and unfortunately, she was rumbled. But I mean, these are the unsung heroes of this whole debacle, and there are figureheads around the planet who couldn't begin to play on the same playing field as these people. They're not even allowed in the stadium. They don't belong. So yeah, we intend to venture into Russia, or at least Russian-held territory under Russian occupation, to do some of this work, and that'll be tricky, but they're not that smart so far.
All right, be careful. One more thing. Now, are you familiar with the documentary Cuba and Alaska? Cuba is a medic in Kharkiv. She's been at it since 2014. The film, the documentary, got quite a. Now they're taking a more traditional approach. This film was given 2 awards in 2025 at the Brussels International Film Festival. They were in Munich. They're currently in Rome. What I'm trying to get to is I can send you, the names of the producers, and you can trace down the companies and so on, and the director and all that. I can send you that information if that would be of any help. Again, they're taking a more traditional model.
It absolutely would be of assistance, because the more we collaborate with experts in the field, the better. Ironically, one of our chief combat medics, who's also head of what we call tactical gain, is from Alaska, and he's fully funded and he's out there right now. So yeah, the more the merrier, because we can't do anything in isolation. We've shown that. We have to imagine if we get, well, imagine this: in America and Russia, for every single serving soldier, there's 16 people behind them. In UK and the Commonwealth, it's not that many. We only have 5.5, roughly on average, people behind each serving soldier. But that means we're more efficient, maybe, or that means we don't have the resources. You could balance that either way. There's a good argument either way. But imagine if we turn that around, and the little number is overtaken by a massive number by spreading the load and bringing on the expertise. I think it's massive. We could. It's like the 57 NGOs and 1053C organizations that I bought under Red Zone Extractions way back in 2022. Everybody was doing them well in most cases, but we were inefficient. We were, on the whole, ineffective. We could empty a whole village rather than a small building on the outskirts. And it's that ethos. We have to, more than happy to continue my efforts to facilitate tons of people getting together online and speaking to our exec producer, Raymond. And I mean, this guy doesn't sleep, which is great. He told me last night, if you can't sleep, go and find an all-night golf course with floodlights, play golf, because I'm not managing to do it during the day while I'm here. I wish. Yeah, the more the merrier, for sure.
And Victor has your current email and so on, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Do we have, please, we have time for more comments We all are completely speechless and grateful for your remarkable work. Katerina, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't even formulate a question. I am overwhelmed with gratitude and, well, just with gratitude for what you're doing, for probably one of the most difficult aspects. Well, there's no not difficult aspects of this horrible war, but for embracing and leaning into one of them, like a very, very difficult thing that's not talked enough about. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for standing up for fellow human beings so bravely and so selflessly. Um, I I'm overwhelmed and touched with your personal sacrifice, your financial sacrifices. I'm just very, very, very grateful. Thank you. I have family in Ukraine. I have family in Ukraine. They're in the western part, so relatively safe. But I am very close connections in Ukraine, and this is your generous heart and love for humanity is so comforting. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd like to bring everybody to the chat and Larry's comments, because that is everything that we're talking about. Restorative justice as opposed to retributive justice. You know, I could never have been articulate enough to say that. Maybe GPT chat might have done it for me, but no, I think that's the key point. That's where we need to be, and with the experience and qualification and talent and skills and attributes of everything in behind every square that I'm looking at on screen right now with initials or photographs. I mean, we can do this. And don't forget, we're fighting the good fight. Probably in the Bible somewhere, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're fighting the good fight.
There, one question from me, as everyone has spoken, but you have been to Russia, you have been to Ukraine. You're not really an outsider, but you weren't born and lived there. Do you honestly think that we will see any kind of agreement, peace deal, with the current regime?
No, I don't think we will. It's gone too far. There are some major things in Russia. You will be surprised how many people don't know about what's going on. And that's through not being told or not being allowed to be told. Then there's another bracket of people who don't know what's going on because they've become ostriches and stuck their heads in the sand. They don't want to be part of it. But they're also scared of voicing their opinion against it. And then they're the ones who choose to ignore it and continue flying around Europe and going to the beach and being very vocal without any kind of retribution. And you know, so there are. It's a palette of many colours. I'll be honest. I've got a few very, very good Russian friends, but I think, but I can tell you now, after 3 and a bit years, all of them say the same thing, just not publicly. We have had some of them join us, who are now serving out of Kherson with the Free Russia Legion, and all right, they're not fit enough now. They maybe won't ever be fit enough in the future to operate at the front, but their contribution is massive. I can tell you, they're just wonderful for me. But having a few friends in many countries doesn't really, it will never overshadow the strength and depth and resilience of the Ukraine culture, the Slavic culture, the heartfelt goodness and in their souls at the
Thank
front
you
end.
very much.
Yeah, for sure. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you so much for being with us this hour. We will make sure people see that, and we'll be very grateful if we meet again with some kind of report. Hopefully, next year we'll see the changes as it
I
showed.
hope so. I'm glad we did this right now, because that puts pressure on me and on my team to be able to do what we said we want to do. We had this idea 2 years ago, but we're at a point now where we can tell that this concept is going to come to fruition, and that we're increasing our ranks of expertise on a daily basis, and that comes with development and with we've evolved, and unfortunately we've had the time to evolve, but the consequence of that evolution means we can end this. If we're forthright enough, we can.
Once again, our deep gratitude and great thanks to everyone in your team, your friends, everyone who is doing that. I will ask Dr. Shrey to give our greetings now in Ukrainian to our friends, please.
Дорогі браття і сестри в Україні, ми зберігаємо вас у наших щоденних думках і молитвах. Нехай милосердний Бог тримає вас у своїй опіці. До наступного тижня. Прощаємося.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!